Hey guys, welcome back to the Curt Schilling Baseball Show. Happy Memorial Day, happy Memorial Day weekend. And in case you're wondering, yes, this is the same show or the same shirt I wore for the show on Tuesday and the same hat because it's the same day. We are recording ahead of Memorial Day simply because we're going to give the staff a weekend off and relax, and they don't have to hear me, pontificate for endless amounts of time. So this is gonna be a show of a couple stories, personal stories, and we're gonna start off with first off, hello, Bill.
Hi,
Again,
Curt.
seems
We're
like
gonna
days
start.
since you and I have talked, or
Exactly.
actually minutes. It's been minutes.
Well, I'm looking forward to your trade story because you've
Okay,
been teasing this.
so I'm gonna actually run down. So I was traded 5 times. Contrary to popular belief, it wasn't because I was a douche in the clubhouse. I think it was because, well, 4 of those were because I don't know. Maybe I'll let you evaluate. First time, 1988. I'm in Double A at New Britain, Connecticut, in front of a doubleheader sellout crowd in New Britain of like 11, and I'm getting ready to pitch the second game of doubleheader. And that morning, if you remember 1988, the Baltimore Orioles started out 0-21, worst start in history. And the Boston Red Sox were in contention. Boston was looking for a starting pitcher at the deadline. No, it wasn't me. I was in Double A, and they reached out, and the Orioles and Red Sox made a deal. The irony of this is that morning in the clubhouse before the doubleheader, we were talking. Mike Carista, Dan Gabriel, myself, Eric Hetzel, and a couple other guys were talking about the deal. It was in the news, and we were like, God, Dan was the #1 pick. Mike was a big prospect and probably the best of the talent in that group at the time. And we were talking, we thought one of us would go. The big thing was we knew Brady Anderson was kind of the centerpiece of the deal. And we had mentioned everybody in the room but me. We had said, yeah, maybe Dan, maybe Mike, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm pitching the second game of doubleheader. I'm walking out of the clubhouse in between, almost at the end of the first game, to go out and start getting loose for my start of the second game. And I pass by the television and I see the ticker on the bottom of the television, ESPN ticker, saying the Baltimore Orioles have traded Mike Boddicker and Baltimore's have traded Mike Boddicker to the Boston Red Sox for Brady Anderson and minor league pitcher Curt Schilling. And then did a double take. That's how I found out. Literally, my Pete Youngman, our clubhouse guy / trainer / chef, was folding clothes next to me. And he goes, "Dude, that's you." And I was like, "Yeah, that is me. Holy crap." That's how I found out about that. Got on the plane the next day and flew to Florida to meet the club, and got my call up a month later in Baltimore. Fast forward 2 years later, in the winter of 1990, we had just had a ton of young talent on this Orioles team. Ton of young talent. Brady Anderson, Mike Devereaux, Steve Finley, Pete Harnish, Bob Malacky, Ben McDonald, Chris Hoyles, Randy Milligan, ton of young talent. And I think a very much an up-and-coming team. The team was looking for a slugger. And Houston extended the offer of Glenn Davis, and what I still believe is the worst trade in baseball history, modern times. Baltimore traded Pete Harnish, who had a decade-long plus very, very good major league career. Steve Finley, who horribly underrated, 15, 18-year career in the big league, stud, and me, for Glenn Davis. And Glenn Davis, I think, hit a total of 13 home runs for the Orioles, and then got his jaw broken in a bar fight and never played again. And stories came out about him afterwards, but that I found out about that one this way. Just met my now wife a month or so earlier, and we were at the breakfast table. It was 11 o'clock in the morning, and I was eating breakfast, and my phone rang, and I answered it, and this is the phone call. And you have to know, Roland Heeman he was a Boston guy, and he was like, "Kit, this is Roland Heeman." And I was like, and the GM calls me. I'm like 20 years old. I'm like, "Hey, Roland, what's up?" He's like, "Yeah, I just wanted to let you know that we've made a trade with the Houston Astros." And I was like, in my mind, this is how naive I was. I'm thinking, wow, that's really cool. The GM of the team is calling me to tell me that they made it. Like, I'm important enough that they'd inform me of a trade. That's kind of nice. That's cool. And I'm like, oh, wow, Roland, that's, we got Glenn Davis from Houston. And I was like, wow, we're going to be really good this year. And I was like, wow, Roland, geez, thanks for calling. He's like, hold on a second, Kit. And I was like, yeah, what? He's like, you were part of the deal. And I'm sitting on the phone like this, and I can see Shonda sitting next to me. She's already crying. Like, she knew what the call was long before I did. And I'm like, oh, that's why you're calling. Okay. And like, I hung the phone up, and my wife was from Baltimore. So this was a dream for me. I was in Baltimore. My wife's from Baltimore. Family's from Baltimore. She grew up in Baltimore. I'm playing for the Orioles, all the things that go with it. Well, now I'm a Houston Astro, and her and I were only a month or two into our relationship. And none of it computed because the Astros called me immediately after that. And Bob Watson was telling, we're really excited to get you and all the things that go with that. And they asked me, to this day, I don't know that anybody's ever, I don't know how this happens, but Bob Watson asked me what I wanted to do. And I was like, what do you mean? He goes, well, you can be a starter or you can be our closer. And I was like, well, all the money's in closing. That's where the fame is. I want to be a closer. And they're like, okay, whatever. Not thinking anyway. But then I'm like hung up, and I was like, oh, wow, I gotta move. I just put a down payment on a home, and all the things to go, which probably wasn't the smartest thing given my age and where I was at, but I felt like I had made the club and all that. So now I'm a Houston Astro. Long story short, Shonda ends up going with me, and 30 some years later, we're still together. Trade number 3 from Houston, end of spring training. So I come out in 1991 and pitched. The Astros were young and incredibly talented team again. Darryl Kyle, Pete Harnish, Mike Sims, Ken Caminiti, Steve Finley. Just Eric Yelding, incredibly talented young team, lots of future talent. And I started out closing during and struggled in the job, and then ended up being a reliever and had a middling season. Not a good one, not a bad one, but could have been a lot better. Last day of spring training in 1992. Yeah, last day of spring training. We are in St. Petersburg playing the Cardinals, and I'm due to pitch the 9th inning. That's my day. And I'm in the clubhouse, and I'll never forget this. Bob Cluck, our pitching coach, comes in and says, hey, you're not throwing today. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm not throwing today? He goes, don't ask me. I can't tell you, but you're not throwing today. I'm like, hold on. What does that mean? I can't throw. Well, you can't tell anybody. And I'm like, tell anybody what? He goes, I think we traded you. And I go, you think you traded me? Like, where? He goes, Philadelphia. And I was like, so I immediately, I'll never forget, I grabbed the Sporting News, and I'm looking up the Phillies in the spring training edition of the Sporting News, like what their roster is. I'm like, oh, Lenny Dykstra, Dale Murphy, holy crap. And no one had announced it yet, and I wasn't supposed to tell anybody. So I immediately called my girlfriend, / soon-to-be wife, and said, hey, we're getting traded. She's like, what? And it ended up being back to Philly. So we ended up going back to we lived literally 30 minutes from her home when I moved to Philly. But that's how I found out that I was going. And here's the thing. It was the last day of spring training. So you have to understand, in spring training, the families drive home at the end of camp for the most part and meet the players. My wife is on the road, headed back in the wives' caravan to Houston to set up the house and all that. And we're going, I can't remember where we opened the season at, but she hears it on the radio. And their wives are driving, and all the cars on the freeway pull over. And they all heard it at the same time. And she's bawling, they're crying, blah, blah, blah. And so I reached her and like, oh my God, we're going to Philly. And her parents were excited. I was excited. And that turned out to be probably 2 things. One, when I left Baltimore, one of the things I'll never forget is Frank Robinson calling me and telling me that he did not want to trade me. And I remember how much that meant to me, given the respect I had for Mr. Robinson and his career and him as a man. That was a big deal. And I thought that was pretty awesome. And, in Houston, I remember Bob Watson years later saying, I can't believe we were stupid enough not to try you as a starter. And I always wondered why that never happened, but it didn't happen because it wasn't supposed to. So I went to Philly. I was there 10 years. And then you know what? I'll tell the other two trade stories at another time. But the Philadelphia to Arizona one's kind of fascinating, as is the Arizona to Boston one. But those are trade stories, and that's one of the things you don't see behind the scenes is the amount of moving pieces involved in a player being traded, especially one that's married. I've been traded as a single guy. I've been traded as an engaged guy. I've been traded as a married guy. I've been traded as a father with kids. All of them the dynamics are incredibly different. So, and in the theme of top fives, Bill, you asked me to talk about what I thought were the 5 best starts of my career. And I thought about it, and I confined it to professional because and big league starts, because there was some stuff in the minor leagues that were memorable to me. And I don't know, I think the top 4 are interchangeable as far as the best starts. I know on top, one of the first 1 or 2 to me, it was a game in which I got a no decision, and the game in which I was going to be the losing pitcher was Game 7 of the 2001 World Series. It was my 3rd start against the Yankees in 9 days, and I had shut them down the first 2 starts, and I went through the first 6 innings of this start perfect. I only faced 18 hitters, and I thought I screwed up walking off the mound for the 6th inning, thinking, "Wow, I'm only faced 18." Instead of every other normal thought I had at the time, I thought, "Well, I'm going to face 27 hitters in Game 7 of the World Series and win 1-0," and then I blew it in the 7th. But holding that offense down for the 7 innings of that game allowed us to stay in it. And Gonzo and RJ coming in relief, Gonzo getting the game-winning hit allowed us to win it. That was the biggest. I don't think it might not have been the best, but that was the biggest start of my life by far. And the next 2 are tied for 2. Not 2, but in the top 5 were 2-game sets. In 2001, in the division series, we played St. Louis. I pitched Game 1 against Matt Morris, and we were 1-2 in the National League in wins that year. Game 1, I threw a complete game and beat him 1-0. We beat him 1-0. And I remember that one. I was as fired up as I'd ever been after a game, because I thought that St. Louis was such a good team. But we beat him 1-0. And then I came back in Game 5 to start and I was beating them again 1-0 till JD Drew hit a home run off me, I think in the 8th inning, to tie it 1-1. And I pitched the 9th, and we won it on Womack's walk-off in the bottom of the 9th. I beat them 1-0 and 2-1. I had in the division series, and that was as good as I've ever pitched in back-to-back starts. But in 1998, during the regular season, I had a back-to-back 1-0, 2-1 series again against Greg Maddux in both games. And it was reverse. I beat him 2-1 in Game 1 after Chipper hit a home run in the first inning off of me. I punched out 15, I think, and beat him 2-1, and then came back. And it's funny because both 1-0 games in those 2-game sets were won in the bottom of the 9th on walk-offs. Womack wins Game 5 of the DS and clinches the DS. And then in 98, Mike Lieberthal hits a ground ball single to beat Maddux 1-0 in the bottom of the 9th. So those 2-1, 1-0 back-to-back games against the same starters are right up there with mine. And then for anybody that was early in my career a fan, probably the best game I ever pitched, and probably as clutch a game as against the best lineup I ever faced, was Game 5 of the 1993 World Series against the Blue Jays. I threw 154 pitches in a complete game, beat them 2-0. A night after we had lost the 15-14 game, had lost 3 5-run leads, and basically lost the World Series. So that one's in there. And then one more was, and I think I talked about this before, Bill, in May, I think May 2nd of 2002, I was literally paralyzed. My neck was locked up. I couldn't pitch. And it was a getaway day Sunday in Milwaukee. I had spent all day on the treatment table from like 6 a.m. I couldn't move. I got to the bullpen. I couldn't move. My neck was locked up. And I remember Chuck Niffen, our bullpen coach, looking at me after I threw my first warm-up pitch. And he's like, "Are you serious? You can't go out there like that." It loosened up, and I ended up striking out a career high 17 in a one-hitter. I gave up. It was a clean single in like the 4th inning to the catcher, ground ball to the right side, and that was the only hit I gave up. And I punched out 17, and that was a career high. And that was one of those games where I came off the field feeling pretty good about myself, just because of the things I had to overcome to get out there. And this was many would say a meaningless game in May, but as a starting pitcher, I don't believe there were ever meaningless games. especially when you consider what you're getting paid. I was going to do this, but I'm going to hold this one off, Bill, till the next show because I want to actually talk about this in depth.
I got to ask a question or two here. All right.
Go ahead.
So when you did the back-to-back in game 1 and game 5, and then against Maddox, the 1-0-2-1, does anything change from game 1 to game 2, or do you go in with the exact same mindset?
Well, I don't know about mindset, but you start to learn early in your career. It was why I lost game 1 of the World Series in '93. You think you have to do things differently. Why would I change any? I just threw a 1-0 shutout. Why would I do something different against you 4 days later? But you trick yourself. Young pitchers do it all the time. You trick yourself into thinking I've got to do something different. No, hitters are creatures of habit, just like everybody else. There's pitches they can't hit on Monday. They're not suddenly going to be able to hit them on Friday or Saturday. You make adjustments, obviously, but you have a well of knowledge going into the second start of what works. And if you can execute and command your fastball inside the strike zone, and move it around in 4 and 6 inch increments, it doesn't matter. It works. Whatever works, works. And, obviously, again, I think the St. Louis back-to-back St. Louis games, that 3-game stretch for me was those two, game 1, game 5, and then when I threw game 2, I think against the Braves in the NLCS, that was the 3 best starts in a row I ever pitched. I think stuff-wise, I had all my stuff. I executed, and I threw 3 straight complete games in the postseason, which counting '93, it was 4 straight complete games in the postseason, with the 154-pitch shutout being my last start in 1993. And complete games were a big deal to me, and that was a big deal. That was as good as I've ever pitched. But no, you as you get older, when you're young, yes. As you get older, you realize back-to-back games against the same team is an advantage if I have the stuff.
And when you say the stuff, what was the stuff for Curt Schilling?
The stuff always started with fastball command. On really good days, I could
up, down, in, out.
Way more minute, detailed. Like I could throw the ball on the corner on the white. I could throw the ball the next pitch on the black, and then I could throw a ball off the black on consecutive pitches. That was stuff. And then I could turn around, instead of going a ball off the corner away, I could go off of that pitch and throw a ball off the corner in. And the key was, when you're going in, you're pitching away, and then you want to go in on a guy like a Glavine used to do, change up boy, and lock a guy up in. You don't get multiple pitches to make the pitch in. You got to make it right away, right? And so because you're freezing a guy, you're locking him up, you're surprising him. So it doesn't do any good if you do it with a ball. But on my stuff days, I could throw it where I wanted it, within probably 1 to 2 inches on both sides. And then, so that broke the strike zone down into down and away, down and in, middle out, up and away, up and out, and then middle up. And so my fastball was essentially 7 pitches. So I could get through a game like that with 115 pitches. I could throw 95 to 100 fastballs. And of those 100 fastballs, they were 6 different types, I guess is how to put it. Because 97 on the black away is a very different pitch than 97 on the belt in. That's just, it doesn't matter that it's a fastball, it's a different pitch. You can't hit both. So if I know, we talked episodes ago about the blue spot, the cold spot for hitters. If I know a hitter's cold spot is down here, Andres Galarraga was a perfect example. He had a hole in his swing on the outside corner of the plate that never changed. And I think I punched him out some 20 or 25 times, somewhere in there, on the same exact pitch, fastball down and away. I could throw it. I'll get a real quick at bat. He comes up. I'm throwing a shutout. I'm throwing a 10-hit shutout in Atlanta in the 9th inning with 2 outs. Bases get loaded. He comes up to pinch hit. I threw him 3 fastballs in the same spot down and away and struck him out to end the game, and knew that the strikeout was going to happen before the at-bat started. Like, that stuff. That was command. And that's when I talk about command and control. Control is the ability to throw strikes. Everybody has that ability. Command is the ability to manipulate the ball in the strike zone, and that's the thing that young pitchers don't have anymore.
Tremendous. Thank you.
Right, so the thing we're going to hold on to, if I could start a team, what pitcher would I start that team with? I already said if I was going to start it with a team, the position player I'd pick was Adley Rutschman. And I'll go into the pitcher as well. And I'm talking about, I'm starting a team for the next decade. Who's the pitcher? There's probably 7 or 8 guys on the list, but there's 3 or 4 that would be in consideration, and I think no-brainers, and you can make an argument for all of them. We'll get to that in a later episode, though, next week. So
that sounds
fun.
good.
That was fun.
Yeah, very fun.
All right. You guys have a wonderful week. We'll catch you guys on Friday. Stay safe. Have a great weekend. God bless. OutKick.com. Click on get the down tab for shows. Curt Schilling Baseball Show there, and on Spotify.